All right, guys, you're doing brilliantly this season. We've got the Champions League. We're doing very nicely in the National League Championship. Now we've got the Chatham Cup against Western Suburbs. We just bet them a couple of days ago. We're like the Tasman Marco of New Zealand football. We're just so dominant, okay? Let's just keep it going. Beat Western Suburbs again. Get some money in the kitty because, we have to sell some players because of that being an issue. So just make sure you pick up some wins, especially in this Chatham Cup Final, so we can actually keep all our players. That'd be quite nice, boys. And also I like trophies.
Party in the streets and the city's on fire.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 167 of the New Zealand Builder Nation here on Shaun Does FM with both the All Whites and Cashmere Technical. I hope you're doing well. And coming up today, we've got the Chatham Cup Final for 2040 and we take on Western Suburbs. So if you're looking forward to that, as well as a bit of a transfer update. And also, we got our wage budget reduced off the back of the Champions League Final. And do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But yesterday, to start off the week, did that Champions League final against Tapugia Mary. So if you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. An 11-0 win there to pick that up here yet again, I'm pretty sure, for the 11th time. So that was quite fitting, that scoreline. Off the back of that, we've made our way through the entirety of the Southern League season. Actually, just started off the championship phase of the National League. To be fair, pretty easy work this one, making our way through. This will just go up so you can see where we left things at the end of yesterday's episode there, right up the top, that 11-0 win for 11 Champions League titles. And since then, a bunch of wins. We'll just get rid of the friendly seeing as they're not important. That should help you guys see the scorelines instead of my big ugly face in the way. But there you can see some pretty comfy wins for the most part. A couple of close ones there. 2-0 over Selwyn United in the second round of the Chatham Cup. That was our first game in nearly a month. But off the back of that, a lot of impressive wins to go through that Southern League undefeated to make our way through to this Chatham Cup final, seeing as we've been taking on some pretty average teams and also just played the first couple of games of the National League Championship. A close one there against Western Springs, albeit that was with a heavily rotated squad. Just wanted to make sure our first team players are ready for a double header against Western Suburbs. Thankfully, just bet them 2-0 a couple of days prior to this Chatham Cup final, but it does mean the early stages of that, we are on top of the table with 9 points. And in terms of how things did finish in each of the sub-leagues here in New Zealand, we'll just go back and show you guys the Southern League first. Obviously, we haven't dropped any points. We topped that one 17 points clear of Christchurch United, to be fair. Decent get back to Nelson Suburbs. Below that, all those 5 teams were in a bit of a relegation fight, but Coastal Spirit, they got beaten on the final day of the season. They stayed on 12 points and will be going down to the second tier here in the South Island. The Central League, it was won by Western Suburbs. They did lose a game, but a pretty good season for those guys. Havelock North and the Napier City Rovers go through the championship. Wellington Olympic just missed out by 1 point, despite the fact they came home very strongly. And moving up to the Northern League, and this was won by Auckland City. They got the job done there by 7 points over Manurewa, and Western Springs and Auckland United make their way through to the championship. Hamilton Wanderers and Birkenhead get relegated, so that's not too good there for the team that I managed to Champions League glory back in the Hexagon Challenge when I was starting off my YouTube saves here. And Island Bay United, they got relegated from the Central League. And in terms of the actual championship itself, obviously, as I said, we're on top, 9 points from 9. Napier City Rovers currently in that second spot, and 7. A couple of teams on 6 points, including Western Suburbs, also Christchurch United and Havelock North. So it's quite tight in behind us at the top of the table. Phoenix Reserves also up there, of course, having made the final last season. And below that, we've got the 4 Northern League teams. That's just not a very good league these days. I've been saying it for a few years now. Auckland City, 3 games, 3 losses. Their form's just gone to absolute poop since they've made their way into this championship phase of the National League. And to be fair, that's also been the case for the other 3 teams from up north. So that league is absolutely dog poo these days. But to be fair, don't have to worry about that going into today's episode, because we'll take on Western Suburbs. But a bit's gone on off the field while we've been making our way through that patch of the season in such good style here at Cashmere Tech. First up, we did get our wage budget reduced. That's probably not the right screen to actually show this to you guys. If we go over here, it got reduced from what was about £44,000 a week, and even then we're over that by a couple of grand, to £36,000 a week. So it does mean had to move some players on, also bought some players in after that, because we wanted to get some players in who could cover the positions where we sold players on a cheaper wage, and thankfully we were able to do that. But yeah, our wage budget got reduced, and at one point we were about £15,000 over it. So we've definitely cleaned house here a bit at Cashmere Tech. We'll make our way over to the transfer history, and you guys can see what we have done. To be fair, some of it I wasn't exactly that keen on. The first one wasn't my choice. Ahmed Al-Dazari, one of our under-20 starters here this season at Cashmere Tech. Unfortunately, he was here on a non-contract, and we tried to renew his contract when that bid came in from Altai over in his home nation, and he did not want to stay here. So Ahmed Al-Dazari no longer at the club. To be fair, that means that Walid Khalid, one of our All Whites here at Cashmere Tech, gets that right-wing starting spot back, but still, that's a bit of an issue because he was one of our under-20 players. You can see there, we really should have had him on a contract, but to be fair, couldn't really afford £23,000 a week, but these days valued around the £15 million mark. Did a good job for us here at Cashmere Tech at right wing, but he's no longer here. So that was a big loss in Ahmed Al-Dazari, and also we let go of Fernando Osorio. Ideally would have kept him around long enough so he could qualify for the All Whites, but we're actually paying him more than his new club, Western Sydney Wanderers, are, and he was a backup, so it did feel like a pretty big wage for someone not as good as Jonas Otto. So if let go of Fernando Osorio, was a very handy local player, being part Australian as well as part Chilean. Did a good job here for a couple of years, but that wage was just too much. We cashed in on him for £12,250, but mainly to sort out that wage budget because he was on a very big wage for a backup player. Sergio Arce, he also departed mainly because we didn't really need him anymore with that 3-star potential and 2.5-star current ability, which I think, to be fair, was lower than that when he was at the club. He's gone to Sydney Olympic over in, I believe, the A-League these days. In fact, no, they're in the second division, scrapping it out there with the likes of the Newcastle Jets. Actually, just noticing there, AFC Auckland aren't in that league. Hopefully that means they're in the A-League. We might just check on that before we go forward anymore in these transfers. And thankfully that is the case. Auckland have been promoted back up to the A-League, 2 New Zealand teams in the top tier there of Australian football, and Wellington Phoenix early stages well on top of that. But thankfully Auckland not currently in relegation danger. But going back to the transfers, and Sergio Arce did go to Sydney Olympic. That was for a fee of only £3,000, but again, a player who was getting very little game time for the first team here over the last couple of years, so we let him go just to get him off the wage books with that big reduction that we did have. And as well as that, one of our players from our under-20s, he got signed as well in Adlan Lamatri. So a few players there who have departed from Cashmere Tech, the 2 big names, definitely Al-Dazari and Osorio, but also we've bought some players in, and that is to sort out our squad balance after letting go mainly of a right winger and a left winger, albeit we did move Finn Brown to the left wing, so it does mean that instead of trying to sign a left winger, we were looking for a replacement as a backup for Jamie Young. So that's why we brought in Stuart McPherson. He's a Scottish 21-year-old with quite a few caps there for the Scottish under-21s, and attribute-wise, he doesn't look too bad as an attacking midfielder. So we've signed him on a non-contract, decent current ability and potential, and so far 2 goals in 3 appearances. He's doing a decent job there as the man formerly of the likes of Upperwell, Newcastle and Larne. So an interesting career for him so far. Hopefully does a decent job here as a backup to Jamie Young at Cashmere Tech, and also a return to the club on a free transfer. Hopefully this means we might be able to persuade him to switch allegiance to the All Whites instead of England, seeing as he's not actually getting picked for those guys because he's not been doing too well at the clubs where he has been. But Alex Moore returns. We loaned him from Arsenal all the way back in 2030/31. 28 years old these days, still quite decent. He'll come in as the new backup to Walid Khalid on that right-hand side, and obviously does count as a local player, having New Zealand as a second nationality. But there you can see his career so far. He scored 15 goals and 20 appearances back for us in the 2031 season. Then went to Osasuna, did okay there before a free transfer to Middlesbrough, and they let go of him after a couple of years in the Championship. Then went to Ipswich, actually had some Premier League experience and didn't do a terrible job, but definitely a bit more of a Championship level player, but they let him go, and we've picked him up on a free as that replacement for Ahmed Al-Dazari. So those are the players that we've brought in just to balance out all those departures that we have made, and that's the reason our wage budget is still over what it should be, but it's gone down by quite a bit off the back of when you were last here, and also for the fact that we did renew quite a few contracts of the players still here at the club, and we got most of those players to agree to a lower wage. That definitely helped us out. So it does mean a couple of changes to our usual best 11 here at Cashmere Tech. We've got Rivera still there at right back, and also Zajic just to stay alongside Anderson, just to make sure we've got enough under 20 players these days with that departure of Al-Dazari, and with that Walid Khalid makes his way back into the first team. Finn Brown currently at left wing. That's because an injury to Jonas Otto. Unfortunately, he'll miss this Chatham Cup final. He's out if we can linger on that for 8 days to 3 weeks. Unfortunately, picked that up in our first Championship League phase game against Manurewa. A calf strain, so that was frustrating, but that good 6-0 win, I suppose that was worthwhile. Hopefully that won't prove too costly. Finn Brown definitely capable of doing a good job for us there on the left-hand side. To be fair, his recent form is quite good, averaging an 8.06. And as well as that, the other thing you'll notice is there's foreigners in that team. That's because both David Cifuentes and Marco Corona are now eligible to be picked for the All Whites, albeit at the moment neither of them actually wants to. We'll hopefully change that before we come back for tomorrow's episode. We can do an update on how things have been going with the All Whites. Of course, during that most recent patch, we also made our way through the OFC Nations Cup. But to be fair, you probably know how that went because we were playing rubbish teams in Oceania. But today, we take on Western Suburbs in this Chatham Cup final. Obviously, a team we're very familiar with. Bet them at the end of last week to make our way through to that Champions League final over 2 legs in the semis. They look pretty similar to back then, with Ben Cipolla still in charge there at the Declan Edge Stadium. And obviously, that 2-0 win we picked up only a few days ago should be a nice confidence boost for us going into this one. You can see the stats from that game. We were definitely the better team. First half goals late on to Rivera and Johnston did mean that we picked up that 2-0 win. Hopefully can put out a similar performance here and lift yet another Chatham Cup, and potentially more importantly, get a bit of extra money into the club, seeing as the finances still not very good here at Cashmere Tech. If we win this, hopefully that gets bumped up, so we're just under £1 million in debts. Hopefully can beat Western Suburbs yet again here and lift another Chatham Cup to try and sort out those dodgy finances. And here are the team sheets for this 2040 Chatham Cup final. First up, the home team going with a 4-3-3, and they look very similar to the team we beat just a couple of days ago in game. In terms of us, Finn Brown out left with that injured Otto. Also, a young Gavin Sterling, who came for a youth intake a couple of years ago in this save. He makes his way onto the bench instead of Craig Johnston. To be fair, he's been in pretty average form of late, and also we don't have now, with Walid Khalid starting, a good double-sided player. With Alex Moore coming in, he can cover right wing and striker, so I think Sterling might be a better option on the bench. Usually would have Johnston, who does a pretty good job for us in cup finals. Early free kick, which Brown takes. Usually Rivera, actually the best free kick taker in this team. That one comes off the woodwork. We put it into the mixer. Unfortunately, a header there goes just over the bar. But as I was saying, just think our bench balance with Moore and Sterling is going to be a bit better than having Johnston, as well as Moore, making sure that someone can cover left wing on that bench. He's now picked up a yellow card as Finn Brown, so maybe Sterling will come on at half-time. We'll just get him to ease off tackles before getting stuck in the remainder of this first half. Coming up now to the 20-minute mark, and eventually get the second highlight of this game, a free kick just inside of our own half. Clark up to Kamalo. Jamie Young tries to pick out there. Carly gets brought down. Rivera cuts inside, takes on a shot. It comes off the inside of the post. It's a beautiful assist though, because it falls for Finn Brown, who can put it pretty much into an open net. Also worth noting, Diaz and goal there. Western Suburbs does look like they've binned off Mark Anderson off the back of that Champions League semi, but that shot nearly sneaks inside there at the near post. But be fair, that's a beautiful angle, almost like a pull shot, that one. It finds Finn Brown perfectly. He can hammer it home and give us a 1-0 lead. And only a few minutes off the back of that, now we've got a throw in here inside the final third. Rivera on the ball again, picks out Clark. Now Young will find Carly. Big deflection on that shot, just evades Diaz and sneaks inside of that left-hand upright. And it's a quick fire double to make it 2-0. And already going a little bit better than we did in that National League Championship game that we played before coming back for this one. Young, he finds Carly, first time finish, actually quite well closed down, but a bit of an unlucky deflection there for Western Suburbs. Quick fire double, we go 2-0 in front. And things have quieted down quite a bit off the back of that hot start in this game, that quick fire double that we did get around the 20-minute mark. And we're going to go into half time here with a 2-0 lead. A very late yellow card there to Corona. So probably going to make a couple of subs here at half time. Just make sure don't go down to 10 men and do anything silly like that. So I think with no real defensive midfield cover on the bench for this one, because Vinicius is actually suspended for this final. Hosafa, though, should be able to do a decent job there. So we'll bring him on for Corona, obviously. Young Gavin Sterling or Finn Brown. That does now mean 3 under-20 players out there. So if we want to take someone like Rivera or Zajic off, we definitely have the chance to in the second half. But pretty happy with how this one's going. 2-0 up at halftime in the Chatham Cup Final. And next to nothing happening so far in the second half of this game. We don't mind that with a 2-0 lead, although Guarneri has gone off for Western Suburbs. That might impact them, but Rivera's gone down to a red heart. That means that sub earlier of Sterling actually quite good. Otherwise, couldn't take him off in this game. Now we can bring on Debenham. That's a goal, though, to Hosafa from a free kick. The shocking mistake there from Diaz, apart from the fact that Hosafa was offside, so it won't count. So still 2-0, nearly put the game to bed there with just about 15 minutes left. Off the back of that, a corner to Western Suburbs. They try and do something similar to what we just did, but Cifuentes, a much better goalkeeper who hopefully we'll see tomorrow in all whites colours instead of just Cashmere Tech. Western Suburbs there did get the ball back briefly. We won it and then gave it away there, looking for, I think that was Sterling down our left-hand side. They pumped that one deep, but Sousa, he will tidy things up and play that one back there to David Cifuentes. An awful pass out there, though. Cogman, open net, misses the target. That was a big chance there for Western Suburbs to make their way back into that game. And only a few minutes later, there's now a highlight starting here, and we have the ball, albeit are being put under some decent pressure here by the home team, but eventually finds Sterling in space there down our left-hand side. He picks out Camalo, who is onside, and the Prince will pick up a goal. That makes it 3-0, and eventually we put the nail in the coffin there of Western Suburbs. Back-to-back wins over these guys in domestic competitions, and this is a big one. It should make sure we pick up the Chatham Cup again here at Cashmere Tech. A lovely ball from Sterling. Camalo timed that run beautifully and puts it away in the bottom right corner, and that's now 3-0 with just 10 minutes left. In terms of overall stats, neither team has done that much in this game. I actually think we might have played better in that previous game in the National League Championship, but today our finishing has been a bit better, and we are 3-0 in front, albeit now Thomas does get played in behind there by Berrio and puts that one on the bottom right corner, so the beefy Western Suburbs do grab a goal back, as they should have done earlier through Cogman. That chance is going to really haunt him, because they really should have made it 2-1 at that stage. We then made it 3-0. They do grab a goal back, but it might just be a case now of too little too late, as they still have to grab 2 goals back here in only 6 minutes, plus added time to make sure this one does go to extra time. And now there's a highlight with 5 minutes left. If they grab another goal back here, that could make things interesting, and we lose the ball there in midfield. Cogman, he gets in behind inside the box, takes on the shot, a good block there. I think that might have been from Anderson on the left-hand side of our defence, but off the back of that, we might just play things safe here and go a bit more circumspect with these player roles, drop all the players who were on attack out wide, back to support, and also that time waste a little bit, and also just go a bit more narrow, because apparently that's quite meta on this year's game. I've actually tried that too much, but apparently being quite narrow is quite good this year. Western Suburbs on the attack again off the back of that corner, because we still saw it. Thankfully, get a block in there, but it does mean a lot of chances now for Western Suburbs to make this 3-2. Thankfully, Anderson will head that one away. Thomas plays in there for win, but Zajic there, good tackle. He can clear our lines, but the highlight continues. So it's a very long highlight here. Hopefully, might end up being something in our favour. We play that back to Cifuentes. He pumps it deep looking for Camalo. He doesn't win it though, and Duval is back on the ball here for Western Suburbs, and they spray it out to Jones down their right-hand side, but Sterling, some good work there, robs it off him and gets it back there. I think that was from Corona. Now he finds Sousa on the attack down our left-hand side there, our left back. Now Clark squares it for Hosafa, goes out to Debenham in a ton of space, squares that one nicely, looking for, not too sure, probably Camalo, but it comes off Steven De Vere. It's an own goal, and that will wrap up this year's Chatham Cup. Absolutely, that makes it 4-1, and that just compounds the misery for Western Suburbs. No way of coming back from this one. But a couple of chances now to make their way back into this game. That actually would have found Sterling, who's had a big impact off the bench in this one, coming on for Brown at halftime, but an own goal there to De Vere, and that should wrap things up in this game. Western Suburbs actually more shots overall in this game, maybe one of those counts as the own goal, but it was a pretty even game stats-wise, but thankfully very clinical with the chances in us taking them in this one. And we're going to lift the Chatham Cup here again in 2040 off the back of a 4-1 win up in Porirua. So a couple of really good wins for us there, both away from home over Western Suburbs. But to be fair, we did beat them rather comfortably in the Champions League semi earlier this year as well. So this year, definitely have the wood over Western Suburbs, and thankfully we showed again there by beating them to lift the Chatham Cup. So yet another trophy for us here at Cashmere Tech in 2040 as per usual. Definitely the most dominant team here these days in New Zealand. To be fair, stats-wise, that game was actually quite even next year actually. They weren't too far behind us, and possession, not as dominant as we usually are, but thankfully pick up a 4-1 win. To be fair, not quite as much prize money as I thought from that one, so the finances still not in the best shape, but they're getting better. Hopefully that will improve when we get paid out for doing well in the National League Championship later this season, and the board's very happy with us off the back of picking up that trophy. Yet again, there you can see biggest overachievers, the Matamata Swifts, and the biggest underachievers, the Dunedin City Royals. Not too sure when they got knocked out, but obviously they had a poor year. Prince Kamalo picks up the top goal scorer, grabbed a couple there in the final. He got 9 goals, and some bloke from Hamilton Wanderers, who next year will be a Northern League second-tier team, he got the most assists, but to be fair, that's not that high number of only 4. For one of our players might have done a bit better than that, but that will do it for today's episode. Bit of an update on what's happened off the back of the Champions League final, and also we picked up the Chatham Cup there off the back of a win over Western Suburbs. If you enjoyed that one, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. We'll come back tomorrow for our next couple of games in this save and do a bit of an update on what's been happening with the All Whites. We've got the Ivory Coast and Mexico, that first one away, same stadium we did last week with a bus trip, so no bus trip needed, and especially for a home game against Mexico. But the Ivory Coast, we beat them last week. They've dropped down the rankings a little bit since then. Hopefully can do the same again before we take on a Mexico team we beat quite comfortably last time, but they are ranked 5th in the world, so that should be tough on paper, but hopefully can pick up some more wins and get a little bit more of a rise up the rankings before we go into our World Cup qualifying here in Oceania. But until tomorrow, for some All Whites action and hopefully some debuts for the likes of Cifuentes as well as Marco Corona. Thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.